In my presentation, I'll discuss collaborations within Madonna's Madame X international tour. She performed with musicians from several countries, including a group of traditional female singers and dancers from Cabo Verde. The nation of Cabo Verde, or Cape Verde, consists of an archipelago of islands located about 300 miles out to sea west of Senegal. Since 2014, the nation has asked to be called Cabo Verde instead of Cape Verde in all languages, and I'll honor that request here. Using Louise Maintia's language, there are multiple interpretive moves that might be used to unpack the meanings of the tour and related music video based on one's position within the cultural and political landscape of Cabo Verde and commercial popular music markets. Madonna's collaborations evoked mixed reactions worldwide, but many Cabo Verdeans believe that having a stake in the global market through exposure to their island's music culture, by having skin in the game, was worthwhile at all costs. I offer a close reading of Madonna's Batuco-inspired music video and a discussion of the Madame X Tour's collaboration with Cabo Verdeans in this paper. Madonna's Madame X Tour was booked from September 2019 until March 2020, but it was cut short by injuries and by COVID-19. The 2.5-hour-long show featured Madonna's alter ego, Madame X, portrayed as a mysterious spy with multiple identities: a dancer, an equestrian, a child, a housekeeper, a mother, a student, a prostitute, a teacher, and a saint, allowing her to adopt multiple music and dance styles, roles, and costumes. The tour publicity suggests that Madame X is Madonna's personal symbol for resistance in a fight against inequality, ageism, misogyny, and sexism. The tour album and persona were influenced by Lisbon, Portugal, her adopted home from 2017 until 2020, although the stylings draw on Latin American and other cultures as well. One elaborate tour stage set replicated a Lisbon club. There, Madonna staged several songs, including Saudade, arranged in a duet with Dino de Santiago, a Portuguese artist with Capo Verdean heritage. Saudade is strongly associated with Cesaria Évora, the singer that put Cabo Verdean mornas and cordilleras on the map for many of us. Another tour scene featured Madonna and her song Batuca, a work that is loosely based on a traditional style called Batuco and backed up in performance by 14 female singers and dancers transplanted from Cabo Verde. Madonna's Madame X tour was deliberately booked in small venues with shows in the United States, Lisbon, London, and Paris. With a vague theme stressing resistance to all sorts of oppression, the tour opened in New York City on a good note. Critic John Pareles from the New York Times wrote, "As both album and show, Madame X is Madonna's latest declaration of a defiant, self-assured, flexible identity that's entirely comfortable with dualities." Yes, she is 61, but her music remains determinedly contemporary. Ticket prices averaged a hefty $250 a show, and when the shows kept starting 2 hours later than announced, audiences became less enamored. By mid-tour, 61-year-old Madonna suffered serious leg injuries, causing multiple shows to be canceled, and the show limped its way to an early halt in March 2020. The Madame X album tour and related documentary film nevertheless grossed some $53 million. How did this collaboration with Cabo Verdeans come to be, and who gained what in the process? More than 15 years ago, Madonna publicly declared herself a fan of singer Cesaria Évora, and she became familiar with some musical genres back then. She writes, "I love morna music, which is the music of Cape Verde. It's the kind of music that Cesaria Évora made. To me, it's like the sound of mourning. It's a kind of sad, melancholic music, mesmerizing and heartbreaking. The song Saudade is about missing something. It's that longing for your home, that longing for your family, that longing for a loved one that you are no longer with. It's about loss, but never about being a victim." Madonna moved her family to Lisbon in 2017 because her son David attended an intensive sports academy there. In Lisbon nightclubs, she came to know Portuguese fado singing and Luso-African styles even better. She became good friends with Dino Santiago, a commercially successful singer and instrumentalist in Morna, Funana, Samba, and cosmopolitan electronic styles. Dino arranged for her to hear a batuque group made up of women from Cabo Verde living in the Lisbon area. Madonna was taken by the experience for some of the same reasons that I was in my field research, and 14 of the batucadeiras ended up on the Madame X tour. Madonna writes, on the other side of the room was a group of women sitting in a semicircle in chairs. They started beating out these rhythms, and then they started singing and taking turns getting up and dancing. I was drawn to them. It was wild. The way they played and the organic way they got up and took turns dancing together and singing solos. They were like a family, a community of women. I marveled at the age range of the women, from teenage girls to women who looked like they could be grandmothers. It was an amazing, immersive, musical, familiar, matriarchal experience. The music was mesmerizing and hypnotizing, and it blew me away. I've never seen anything like it before. They were joyous and enthusiastic. There was an abandonment, for lack of a better word. Later, when we were on tour, sharing the stage with them was like an aesthetic experience because I was surrounded by such powerful, passionate women. Having them all around me singing along, I really felt like they were there for the right reason, to share their message of love and unity and female empowerment. I could feel how proud they were to share this tradition that's been going on for hundreds of years with the world. It was as if we were feeding off each other's energy. Allow me to put batuque in context. In a nutshell, batuque is a song and dance genre with call and response structures and a polyrhythmic organization like many African diaspora traditions. Batuque was associated with working women and a few men from the interior of Santiago, Cabo Verde, whose African ancestors arrived as a result of the slave trade. That the islands were uninhabited when Portuguese explorers arrived in 1456 or so. The empty island became a slave trade hub, and the Creole population today is a mixture of African, European, and other people who stayed on. The term batuque encompasses singing, dancing, beating time, clapping hands, and getting together for a social event. Each song has a leader who establishes the tempo and starts the song while the group members beat contrasting patterns on cushions, creating a polyrhythm with the juxtaposition of patterns of ones, twos, and threes. A dancer or two in the middle wraps a sash around her hips, or sometimes his hips, and begins to move slowly at first, but gradually picks up energy and speed. Song soloists and chorus initially exchange a melody with 4 lines or so. This is shortened into smaller phrases as the group builds to a peak, which is characterized by rapid-fire call and response exchanges, loud dynamic levels, and intense dancing and beating. During the song's highest energy point, the dancer's hips gyrate in rapid staccato moves, somewhat like twerking, but in a fully upright position. Batuque songs have lyrics of topical interest, often expressing resistance to sexist, racist, and colonialist forces. The sessions serve as a cathartic release, relaxing and binding together community members. In the past, batuque was done at family and church celebrations, although the dance was often discouraged and sometimes censored. Following independence from Portugal in 1975, ensembles began to perform for secular regional folk festivals, tourist events, and municipal celebrations. And now you'll see a video clip of some batuque that I shot. In July 2019, just before the tour, Madonna released a music video on YouTube called Batuka. The video made it around the Cabo Verdean diaspora within 24 hours of its release, and folks immediately began to discuss it on Facebook. My first reactions to it were that the video wasn't shot in Cabo Verde, and that Madonna's song didn't share much musical ground with Batuku. Madonna's song is in 4/4 time, without Batuku's typical polyrhythmic emphasis. It is based on call and responses, but just the exchange of one short phrase. Madonna's melody is chant-like, using just a couple of pitches in comparison to the more complex Batuku melodies. I'll quickly talk you through the video highlights and then we'll watch some of it. It begins with images of an ocean coast as a storm comes in. Women seek shelter in a house to the sound of echoey monophonic religious chant. We see two short but not very well written or accurate captions conceptualizing Batuku and its relationship to the slave trade and resistance. These are followed by a short clip of women doing Batuku in its original form, and then we see one final caption. By 45 seconds in, we see the women in blankets sitting inside of a building. At 50 seconds, we see a shot of a fleet of ghostly sailing ships on the horizon. At 60 seconds, the women sing and clap Batuku in a traditional way for about 10 seconds, and then Madonna's song, based on two pitches, begins. The rest of the video contains shots of Madonna and the women singing, dancing, embracing, and praying. There are coastal storm shots, and at the end we see the fleet of ships again, likely symbolizing slave ships and or colonialism. The fleet disappears and the video fades out. Madonna's song overlays the music of the women, and we only get glimpses of the original Batuku stylings. I'll give you a sample, but not the whole thing.
It's a long way. It's a long way. It's a long day. It's a long day. Lord have mercy. Things have got to change. There's a storm ahead. I hear the wind blowing.
You couldn't hear all of the lyrics in that short clip, but the lyrics didn't make much of an impression on me when I first saw it. Many YouTube fans responded to the lyrics in a favorable way, reading the rather vague words as resistance to many things: colonialism, racism, Trump, Bolsonaro, and even COVID-19. The majority of Cabo Verdeans that I heard from in Facebook discussions and private conversations believe that exposure to the island's music culture through collaborations is more worthwhile than any consequences of cultural appropriation processes. While most didn't particularly like Madonna's Batuka song or her interpretation of Saudade, they gave Madonna an A for effort, for performing the song in Criollo, accompanying herself on 12-string guitar, and for treating Cabo Verde's traditions with respect and affection. But one said he would rather have sand in his eyes than listen to Madonna sing Saudade. Nevertheless, the majority viewed the collaboration as a means to open up new markets and build audiences. The tour certainly did depict multiple Cabo Verdean styles to the outside world: Morna music associated with Cesaria, traditional roots styles represented by Batuco, but also music of Dino de Santiago, who performs in a variety of styles and interacts with the extremely happening Luso-African electronic dance music and Creole rap scene based in Lisbon. The tour is an artistic production with several inherent illusions. The Lisbon nightclub was a stage set. The video was shot in Portugal, not Cape Verde. And of course, the Batucadeiras aren't rural Cabo Verdean women living in the countryside. They're students, mothers, grandmothers, workers who had to catch buses back to homes in Lisbon neighborhoods when they finished. This collaboration between a U.S. pop superstar and musicians from a small island nation is unique. Comparatively speaking, Cabo Verdeans had a fairly large influence on the way their culture was portrayed in the production. Singer Dino de Santiago and the Batucadeiras were by no means the only ones involved in the production from Cabo Verde. Madonna's music director and keyboardist, Kevin Antunes, is an American music director and keyboardist of Cabo Verdean heritage and a fifth-generation musician with extensive international music and business experience, having worked with New Kids on the Block, NSYNC, Michael Jackson, and more recently Madonna. Several other band members were also from Cabo Verde, and together they undoubtedly helped shape Madonna's representation of Cabo Verde. Altogether, Cabo Verdeans played a significant role on stage and behind the scenes, and the larger Cabo Verdean diaspora community has made them more than props by giving them faces. For example, the talented Cabo Verdean American photographer Ron Barbosa did portraits of each of the touring Batuco performers, humanizing them as modern, beautiful women in control of their own destinies. After meeting and photographing the women on tour in New England, Ron Barbosa posted their photographs on social media. Will these collaborations have long-lasting effects for Cape Verdeans? Maybe. There may be altogether more opportunities to hear Batuco and other styles in coming years. It may help all sorts of artists find work. I would say that the Batuco tradition has changed a lot since the early 1990s when I did field work and wrote my dissertation on Funana and Batuco. When I was there, Batuco was done by informal groups of women who freely shared their songs and encouraged participation. The very first local music festivals with stages and microphones were just beginning, with local government sponsorship. Researchers tell that a decade later, attitudes had significantly changed as musical styles were discovered and commodified. The Batuco groups formalized their memberships, closed their practice sessions, and began wearing standardized clothing. They guarded their songs from others in hopes that someone like Paul Simon would discover them and bring them financial stability. In a way, Madonna seems to have done something like that for these Cabo Verdean women living in Lisbon. But what did Madonna gain through this collaboration? Well, she certainly earned the largest chunk of the $53 million, but she also gained self-affirmation as standing with the repressed, at least in her own eyes. Giving to causes is not without controversy, but there is no denying that Madonna is a major philanthropist with a history of donating to some 30 causes and agencies. She has a particular relationship with Malawi, where she adopted 4 children, and she's donated money to build a hospital there, among other things. Some critics have been cynical about the tour, writing that her adoption of this new repertoire felt like that of a well-meaning tourist. In songs and stage patter, she sometimes conflated self-realization and self-absorption with social progress. Madonna has always been open about her hunger for fame, knowledge, notoriety, experience, and adventure. She's borrowed and stolen from other styles and images in provocative ways throughout her career and pulled it off successfully most of the time. That's part of what's made her an icon. In the following audio passage, Madonna expresses her views on borrowing and collaborations, saying that the use of styles associated with other cultures is a form of homage or respect for her.
My search for my own identity. I come from the Midwest, but I travel to the Far East. Everywhere I go, I'm inspired by not only the people, but the cultures and the music. Art belongs to everyone. It's not a question of appropriating what other people do and taking it as your own. For me, it's an homage to all the music that I've listened to and giving a platform and a voice to all of this incredible music that the rest of the world doesn't really have the privilege to hear and listen to.
No.
Madonna says that one objective of her Madam X project is to fight oppression everywhere she sees it. Working with musicians from other places and social classes may give her credibility. She also recognized and enjoyed the presence of a strong female force when working with the Batucaderas. I know I felt this power when I was working with Batucaderas in the 1990s. Of course, I can't know what the women from Santiago felt about me in 1990 or what they felt about Madonna more recently in Lisbon. Were they motivated by goodwill, potential gains, or something between? In any case, Madonna seems to have been sincerely moved by something special that the women could offer, as you'll hear in this clip.
We all sat in a room together. We recorded it live. They were amazing, and it was a religious experience. It's a long day. Even my children were there singing along with them. It was just a total celebration of life. You could feel the matriarchal power of these women. You could feel history. You could feel sadness, and you could feel, most importantly, joy.
In sum, Madonna created a production that was shaped, at least in part, by willing collaborators in the theatrical representation of Lusophone cultures. While the representation will without a doubt influence perception of Cabo Verde, the majority view from Cabo Verde is that the benefits outweighed the risks to the stability of cultural traditions back home. Who are we to say otherwise?